Hello everybody and welcome back to it's Ignite 2018. It is hot, it is humid, but we are thankfully inside. I'm with Steve and Ilya of Netwrix. And what brings you guys to, what brings you to Ignite?
Well, we're here to show off our great products and meet a lot of customers. And we have a lot of customers here, meeting with a lot of our partners, meeting with Microsoft, and here to talk to you.
Well, you don't have to put me up on a podium by any means. So let's just dive into that. So, you guys are demoing here. You're talking to customers. What are you hearing? What are you guys hearing as like the trends in the market currently?
Well, we feel like one of the trends that we're right on point with is protecting data. Customers need to protect their data. Organizations need to protect their data, whether they're large or small, and just increasingly more and more compliance. And customers are struggling to know what data to protect, what's sensitive, what's important, and then what's the best way to protect it. And that's what we're here to kind of connect with.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly the point, and then everything else kind of ties into that with our transition from on-premises to the cloud, more and more hybrid environments, and still that kind of plays into the same story, because you've got the same issue with now you've got more locations where your data is at. So now you've got even more mess that you have to figure out how to get out of.
Yeah, and as your data expands like that, compliance becomes a real big issue, security, and maintaining all that. So how does Netwrix fit into that that model? Where do you guys fall into that?
Well, first of all, we help you find your sensitive data, right? We help discover and really keep track of, and if you have to mitigate something about what you find or dedupe or get your data under control. And then I think the next most important part is knowing who has access to that data, how do they get that access, and then what are they doing with that access. And so if there's any changes in the environment, we can track that as well and monitor that. And then one of the really strong operational values is we create great audit reports for you to pass your audits and know that you're secure. So,
yep. And one other thing to add is that while we are focusing on data security, we actually approach that in a quite unique way, where we track the user activity and track the actions on all levels. So on the data level, structured and unstructured databases and file shares and SharePoint or SharePoint Online, things like that. But then also on the application level, on the configuration settings level, on the network level, on Active Directory infrastructure. So wherever there is activity that might put your data at risk, wherever there are inappropriate configuration settings that might impact availability of the data or integrity of the data, we can report on all of that.
Or even unusual activity, right? So we're tracking behavior and users and what they normally do and comparing to what is happening. And so we can raise some flags and give you some good.
Let's dive into that. How do you track a user like that, and what's a flag? How does this whole process get tripped off?
Yeah, I can take that one. So basically, you can configure the alerts, and you can configure rules and threshold-based alerts based on statistics of the user activity. But typically, the problem with the alerts is that a security operator will basically get the alert and decide whether to respond or to dismiss that alert. But that will be a one-time action. So what we do on top of that, we are aggregating those alerts over time and assigning different risk scores based on what are those alerts. So if it is like a sequence of failed logins, that will get potentially some risk score, but not the highest risk score, because that is a sign of someone trying to get into the system, but that attacker is not there. Whereas if there is some activity like launching inappropriate programs on the production servers or on a domain controller, which should never happen, that would probably be a bigger risk score. And then if there is something like something like super exceptional, like a new domain controller appearing on the network outside of the normal change control processes, that is probably a shadow DC attack, which you absolutely have to report right away with the highest risk score. So all of those add up over time, and then you can see like the bird's eye view of the organization with all those risk scores accumulated over time, and then you can review and dismiss those that are not really impacting or that were part of the normal processes, and kind of focus on what was not normal.
Let's dive into one of everyone's favorite things, auditing. So you mentioned that this helps you pass audits faster. What do you mean? Let's go.
Well, we automate the process from beginning to end, and so at the end of your audit period, and you need to know what changed in your environment, or maybe you want to know what Steve did the last 2 weeks that he was on the job. Many of our customers have just gone through the process of trying to figure that out manually. They're trying to sift through logs and trying to correlate different information, and we do that automatically. We're correlating multiple sources to one user view, and we can give that 360-degree perspective of what this one person did in his last 2 weeks, for example, or all the changes that took place.
And one important aspect of that is not just being able to report on all of that, but also being able to prove the auditors that you have ability to have that under control. So we had a customer who basically told us that in the past, when the auditors came and were asking all of those questions, each question was triggering an activity, diving into the logs, diving into taking screenshots of the settings or permissions or group memberships, whatever it is. So that was painful for them, and that was taking a lot of time because every other item or piece of information they produced was triggering more questions, that was triggering more work for them. So now that customer of ours just says, yeah, I just show them the folder where my Netwrix reports are, and then I just show them the Netwrix search interface. And if they have any questions, or how do you track this or that, I just do a quick search, and within half a minute, I can show them that I actually have that information. I actually control that knowledge. I actually am aware of what's going on, and so I can really have controls around my IT policies, my data security policies. I really have that feedback mechanism to kind of see what is working, what is not working, what is followed, what is not followed.
Yeah, and we're talking about logs, but we actually create a lot of information that's not in the standard logs. So we create more information around the event to just give more detail and more kind of a clear view of what happened. And so we're actually very complementary to the SIEM type vendors. So we can push our information into a SIEM, and or the audit information we provide would be very difficult to get other ways. So that's part of the value.
Interesting. So you guys have been out walking around the show floor. What else are you guys seeing at Ignite? What's just happening in your world?
Well, a lot. One of the trends, obviously, is like we were discussing the other day, is this transition and the way how Microsoft is talking about what they are bringing to the IT. They almost stopped talking about data center and server applications and all of that. It's all about cloud and the mobile devices and the Internet of Things. So definitely there is a lot around that, and we see a lot of vendors that are kind of helping with that transition, because obviously, as always, Microsoft is doing a great job, but also leaving a lot of space for the partners to come in and kind of do little things here and there.
And more and more of our customers are moving to Office 365, and we're helping audit those environments. Our product runs in Azure, so it's just kind of a nice validation that we're in a sweet spot here, and providing a lot of value to our customers, who are also Microsoft customers and beyond Microsoft.
Very cool. If people want to find out more about where you guys are, what's the best way to get in contact, or just, frankly, just learn more about your product?
Well, Netwrix.com, Netwrix, and booth 1504 right here at the show floor. You guys are welcome anytime.
Yeah, stop by.
Perfect. Well, we very much appreciate you stopping by and telling us about what's going on in your world. And you can always find out more at Petri.com or at Netwrix.com. Thanks for tuning in.